Hi, Todd here, Product Specialist at Softube, and I'm here today at American Musical Supply to talk to you about Universal Audio Apollo integration with Softube's Console 1. Let's dive right in. You can see on my screen that I'm looking at the UA console screen. We're going to switch over to the Softube Console 1 display by hitting the On button, and we're going to switch over into Apollo Central mode by hitting Shift and Mode. In a second, it switches over to Apollo Central. Here, I can make all my adjustments I need to my Universal Audio Apollo hardware. Let me show you an example. By hitting Shift and 1, I could load a plugin into the Universal Audio Unison channel strip. Let's use the UAD2 API Vision channel strip. This is a great one for instruments and vocals. You can see my screen populates with all my controls. By turning knobs, the knobs reflect what I'm turning on the screen. Some users like the fact that we could also see the GUI of the plugin. This is simple to do. We hit the Display On button, that turns the display off, and then we come on in, and we bring up our API GUI. Now I could come on in and adjust my parameters directly on the GUI. Something that's really important that Console 1 does that you cannot do with a mouse or a trackpad is we could alter more than one parameter on the plugin at a time. Let me show you what I mean. You can see by grabbing the low gain and grabbing the high mid gain, I could control both of them at the same time. This is a big deal since we're limited to only one parameter with a mouse or a trackpad. You can now do things like sweep for a frequency while boosting or cutting, or maybe affect the bandwidth of a frequency while boosting or cutting. Another example of this would be using the UAD2 Moog filter. This time, instead of going to the Unison channel strip, I'm going to load it into my first insert. I'm going to come on down. You can see all my UAD2 plugins are right there, and I'm going to go down to Moog, and there's my multi-mode filter. I bring it up, and once again, I could turn my display off, open the plugin GUI, and now you can see I'm doing something really important that you cannot do with a mouse or a trackpad. I'm affecting my filter cutoff while also affecting the resonance at the same time. This is a big deal because those of you that are Moog users realize that you're going to have both hands or maybe multiple fingers on different controls at once to really maximize the synth. The way you're going to probably use Console 1 directly with your Universal Apollo the most is by using it during mixing. Before we were looking at using it during tracking. We're doing everything in the input stage of your Universal Audio Apollo. But let's see how we may use it with our Universal Audio Apollo when we're mixing. I've pulled up a drum loop here. Nothing to complain about there because it's Mark Juliana on drums. But let's see if we could do some sculpting to this. Now I'm going to come on in and load my own custom UAD2 setting by hitting Shift and EQ. Let's come on in and load the Chandler Curve Bender. Now by turning on the EQ section, I still have my solid state logic 4000 channel strip, but I've switched out the Curve Bender for my EQ section. By hitting play and making some knob adjustments here, I can now start to tweak some sounds on the drum kit. Let's see if we can get a little bit of that harsh cymbal sound out of there. Okay, right about there, we've got some of that sibilant sound. I'm going to pull it back a bit. But we've lost some of the top end. So I'm going to use the button on the top right to switch to a shelf, and I'm going to boost some of the high end of this drum kit. And let's see if we can get a nice boomy, bassy bottom to this too. All right, so I boosted the bass, I cut out some of the low mids, I cut out some of those high mids that were a little sibilant, and then I boosted the top end to give some brightness back to the cymbals. Now let's finish this all off by loading our own UAD2 compressor. So I'm going to come on in, hit Shift, Compressor, and you can't go wrong with drums and a Fairchild, so let's use the UAD2 Fairchild. Now the nice thing about this is we could do all of our parallel mixing directly on console 1. So I'm going to really crush the drums, and then I'm going to bring some of that dry signal back in. Now let's listen with all of our UAD2 plugins bypassed. And we'll bring in our UAD2 plugins now. The Universal Audio Apollo and Softube's Console 1 are a great match to work together. For any questions or sales, please visit americanmusical.com.